Finally, Wizards of the Coast has given me a gift. They have given me the perfect commander for a deck that I've been wanting to build since the day I started playing Commander 12 years ago. Hello everybody. Hey, don't forget, we still got Dominaria Remastered. We are on our way to 2K. We are almost there. We've been getting between 50, 60, 70 subs every single video. We're gonna hit that 2K soon. So all you have to do, subscribe, like, and put down in the comments below, nerd, NERD nerd, and I'll be sending this out shortly. Let me tell you guys a little story about the very first deck I ever built, Ural the Miststalker. This was a Voltron deck, an Aura deck, but there was one card that wasn't an Aura that I had to put in there, a little card by the name of Sword of Feast and Famine. Sword of Feast and Famine did so much work in that deck, not to mention the fact that it unlocked my very first infinite combat loop, and 12 years ago, that was very tough to deal with. So I retired the deck, and ever since then I've been wanting to play a deck that featured the swords. Not just Sword of Feast and Famine, but all the swords. But every commander that's come out since then, I didn't really like something about him. When Kellan the Fae-Blooded was spoiled, it hit me. This is the perfect deck, the perfect swords deck, and I'll show you why. So let's get into the deck tech. Kellan the Fae-Blooded is a 2/2 human fairy costing 2 and a red, but it also has adventure. Never seen that before. For 1 and a white, search your library for an aura or equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. The other side of Kellan has double strike and reads other creatures you control get +1/+0 for each aura and equipment attached to Kellan the Fae-Blooded. Tutors are good.
Yep.
Double strike is good.
Double yep.
Anthems are good.
I'm not arguing with you.
Kellan is good. You gotta love a commander that does it all.
But why is he so good for swords, though?
Well, first, he can tutor up the exact sword that you need. All the swords have protections from 2 colors. Red and blue, black and green, and that means creatures in those colors can't block you. That means you're going to get your damage through. And each of these swords has some sort of damage trigger. So Sword of Fire and Ice says whenever an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Sword of Fire and Ice deals 2 damage to any target and you draw a card.
Oh.
And that brings us back to Kellan because he has double strike, and that gives us 2 separate combat damage triggers. This means instead of dealing 2 damage and drawing 1 card, we're dealing 2 damage twice and drawing 2 cards. Now, normally at this point, I'm going to get into my ramp and I'm going to get into my card draw, but honestly, ramp and card draw in this deck is the same thing. So we're just going to call this section Swords.
Swords.
We got Sword of Body and Mind, Sword of Feast and Famine, Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Forge and Frontier, Sword of Hearth and Home, and Sword of War and Peace. We have the full collection, but let's focus in on the swords that give us ramp. Sword of Forge and Frontier is going to give our creature +2/+2 and protection from red and green. The major part is that whenever you deal combat damage, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Again, with our commander, that's going to be 4. You may play those cards this turn. You may play an additional land this turn. So this is going to get us into some card draw and some ramp.
Well, that's pretty nice.
Sword of Feast and Famine is going to give us protection from black and green, and the major part is going to let you untap all lands you control. Doubling your mana production is big, but whenever you combine this ability with something like Aggravated Assault, it's huge.
Huge.
All you need is 5 lands out, and in this deck that's not hard to get, and you're going to be able to continually pay for Aggravated Assault and get as many combats as you want, because once you get all your swords on, it's going to be really tough to block you. Sword of Hearth and Home is also going to let you search your library for a basic land and put it into the battlefield untapped. So this is going to ramp you on top of giving you protection from green and white and giving you a flicker effect, which can yield some nice value. I'm also going to throw in an honorary sword, Sword of the Animist. This is going to have a similar effect where with your commander, it's going to get you up to 2 basic land drops per combat. And we've already mentioned it, but Sword of Fire and Ice is too good to not mention again. It gives you protection from red and blue and lets you draw a card.
What about the 2 damage?
Hey, you're right. The 2 damage isn't why I like the card, but the fact that it can go to any target doesn't make it insignificant. We also have Sword of Body in mind. Now this one is going to give us protection from green and blue, but the big thing is that it puts a 2/2 wolf creature token onto the battlefield. And with our commander's last ability, that is actually pretty nice. So remember, other creatures you control get +1/+0 for each equipment attached to Kellan. So when you have this little army of wolves growing, they get to be 7/2s, 8/2s. They can do some work. Sword of Body in Mind also gives us a really nice alternate win con. When you can make somebody mill 10 or 20 cards, sometimes that's all you need for the win. Yeah, man, I've been there. And last and probably least in this deck is Sword of War and Peace. It's not a huge value piece, but man, is it a good finisher. Protection from red and white is fine, but when you're able to deal damage to a player equal to the number of cards in their hand, this is where it gets fun, because you're able to punish that player who keeps drawing a bunch of cards. The one downfall is when you have protection from red and white, there are certain equipments that you can't put on your commander. So one of my favorites is the Reaver Cleaver. It's an amazing card that gets you a ton of value in this deck, but it's a red card. So if it's equipped already, it just falls off.
Well, that's a dumb rule.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. There's tons of other good cards in this deck, but you could literally run it with just the swords and it would be streamlined and consistent. Everything else in the deck just supports the swords, give you extra combat, reduces equip cost, reduces cast cost. It's a really nice focused deck. For my money, Kellan the Fae-Blooded is the best swords commander out there. If there are any cards that you think I must put in this deck, put it in the comments down below. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Until then, embrace the chaos.